We've located all the stationary points, we've determined their nature, okay? So now we get to do the fun bit, hence, graph. Now, in year 9, you could have graphed this already, okay? But what this is providing is a lot of extra information for what it's going to look like, and we can be precise, okay? So if we're to graph something, go back to year 9 version of U, what would you do this to make it easier to graph? You'd factorize, right? So you can take out the x, that'll leave you with x squared minus 1, and of course you can factorize that as well, right? So that's difference of squares. Okay? So this thing's going to have 3 roots, which is not unusual for a cubic, at 0, 1, and minus 1. Okay? Or in order, minus 1, 0, and 1. Okay? Now, you sort of already know what this is going to look like, okay? But before you do it, let's think about what part A told us, okay? Now we know where these stationary points are. And this always bugged me before. When I was graphing things like a cubic, okay, here in year 9, even in year 10, okay, people would ask, well, you know, like a point like that, okay, where is that? And the most immediate sort of instinctive response is, well, if this is minus 1 and this is 0, you would expect it to be like halfway between, right? A negative a half. That's the way parabolas work. If you want to find the vertex, it's just halfway between the roots, okay? But as you can see, or look at these values, maybe they're the best, you can see they're not symmetrical. It's not a 0.5. It's just a bit off, okay? So minus 0.58, if you've, now this is where you've got to be careful for scale, right? If you put this distance here, this is minus 1 and this is 0, okay? Your stationary point is about minus 0.6, right? So it's closer to this side. It shouldn't be halfway, okay? So I'm guessing that's sort of halfway. Does that look about right? So I want a bit to the left, okay? So I actually want it to be somewhere like that, okay? Now that's a stationary point. So to help me draw it, I'm going to put a horizontal line there, okay? Because the gradient at that point should be 0, okay? Does that make sense? Yeah.
How strict is it about it not being like halfway?
Well, okay. If this is the question, I suppose strictness would come down to how many marks this was on. So for instance, locate all stationary points, determine their nature. This would be probably 3 marks. Okay? Half a mark to find each stationary point, and then 2 marks to actually determine the nature. Because that's a fair bit of work, yeah? When you're getting to the graph, it's sort of up for debate how many marks you put on that. So if, for instance, I saw, say, 3 marks, it's quite a lot for a graph, especially being that you've done all this legwork before that you don't need to do again, okay? So for this, I'd expect your scale, you know, and also it says showing all features. So in a second, I'm going to label these stationary points on there, and I'm going to say that's 0.58, not 0.5. So therefore, yeah, especially when it says that, okay? Just like if we said put intercepts on, you'd want 1 and 2 and 3 to be evenly spaced, and you wouldn't want them off. Okay? All right, so let's keep going. There's my max turning point. In fact, I might even write that there, max turning point, okay? And you can see from our dashes here that I can sort of expect it's going to do this. Okay, so there's one side, right? That's not too bad. We'll see how my second half goes. Now, it's an odd function, okay? So I should get the mirror image on the right-hand side, except sort of rotated, right? So again, I'm going to want my minimum turning point to not be positioned halfway between 0 and 1, but a bit to the right. It's 0.58, right? So, let's see, about there. Okay, so again, I think a really helpful thing to make sure your curvature is good, because that would be, you know, half or one of the marks would be on how neat it is. You put that horizontal line there so that when you're done, it really will be a stationary point. It won't be like one of those bouncy things, okay? It's got to come to a nice, neat, smooth curve. Alright, so, we'll finish this off. That's okay, I think. And there's our minimum. Ta-da! Done. Now, we probably should, since it says graph it, show all features, we've already put the intercepts on, and you know, you guys know it's important to label intercepts. So now that you know how to talk about turning points, we also ought to label those as well. Sorry that they turned out to be such terrible coordinates, but I thought I'd pick a nice simple function. So let's put them on, okay? Ta-da! Okay.
So,
Yeah.
is it okay to draw graphs like partially? Because definitely had Miss Doyle, she really didn't like if she could see more than one line. on the graph.
Okay. So this is just a practical question. Like, do you do it by bits, or do you just go one smooth curve? You do need to have, as what you present, it needs to be one smooth curve. Okay. Now here I can sort of get away with it because that sort of does look like if it was not that, if I was a bit slower, you could see I could get one line through there, right? However, what you want to avoid, I think we've talked about this before, is where you've got like, not say 2 lines, but like 50, okay? So you want to avoid something like, ooh, I sort of want to get like a smooth sort of thing there, and you know, there you go. And then, you know, that's okay. So a lot of people's graphs look like that. I know I've done graphs like that, and you're like, you know, this is not good because like if you add, you know, a couple more legs, and you're like, you know, you've got like a head here, and you're like, you know,
And that's not so bad.
I'm a camel. Okay, so don't do that, because you're drawing a curve, not an animal. Okay, so what I would do is if you absolutely can't, and you know, let's face it, it's actually quite hard to get the curvature really nice first go. Okay, here's what I would do. I draw my camel, but I draw it in pencil, okay, really light pencil, okay, and then either, this is dangerous to say, but either in pen or in a much harder pencil, right, put one smooth curve through it. So you do your furry thing first, right,
Line of best
and
fit.
that, sort of, you're like, okay, there's my general shape, okay, and then you put your line through it. Now, once you put that line through, if you've done it hard enough in pencil or in pen, you can just rub off all of the fur, okay? So you do need to present one smooth curve, okay?